Live from Lincoln and broadcasting across the state of Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Hey, we're back. And it's only been a little less than 7 hours, maybe 6. I don't know. Math, not my thing. I know what the difference in 24 to 6 is, though, as we are here for you, weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. I'm still in Minnesota. The good news is Junior has been found. He went MIA parts of the third quarter. So he's good. He's snoring away upstairs. Uncle Andy is alive and well. My wonderful brother-in-law, my nephew Chan, is fine. And hey, the sun came up literally this morning, but Nebraska fans still not happy. Man, Uncle Larry in at 6:45 this morning with a question that we can try and answer. WTF, says Uncle Larry. More comments and questions from you. We'll check in with Brandon Vogel this morning. Mark Kraynak going to be back with us here shortly. Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, is here. Elijah Herbel. Elijah, appreciate you, brother. And we'll also check in with the Iron Horse Gary Sharp. Brandon Vogel going to be with us from Counter Reed. We'll still try and make some sense of it. Bill, I know you were doing Creighton basketball last night. You had a chance to rewatch things. Elijah and I tried to calm the waters, sort of, with Real Red Reaction last night. And folks are hot. Folks are ticked off. And it's not that you lost, it's how you lost. And Nebraska fans just quite simply thought you were beyond this type of performance. And they're just not.
Well, what I saw, I came home and I did not see anything of the game, only saw that the score was 7-6 at halftime. That's all the information that I had. So that's why I didn't join you last night on the show, because I didn't feel like I could contribute since I hadn't seen the game. They did not show it in the arena. There were no indications of score. There were 15,000 people there, and they weren't cheering or anything like that. So I literally got home and had no idea other than 7-6 at halftime. So that's why I didn't participate in the reindeer games last night. I did watch the game in its entirety when I got home, and what I saw was really a lot of love, I thought. Schmidt gets, sidetracked, but I'll explain why I saw a lot of love last night on the field. And that is that Nebraska's football players love Matt Rule so much that they don't want him to leave for Penn State, that they put forth that kind of effort last night to show that there is absolutely no way Penn State will hire Matt Rule to be its head football coach. So I thought that was the reason the effort was given last night, was to make sure their coach would not get hired away by somebody else.
Bill, I like that, because I also saw a lot of love in a tennis sense. Zero effort.
Some Hotel California action last night, Bill. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, they stabbed me with their steely knives. Look, okay, if you're gonna measure a program on its progress, how might you be able to do that? Well, maybe compare a game setting to one that was 2-3 years ago. Matt Rule's era at Nebraska began with a night game at Minnesota, and Nebraska lost a heartbreaker. Took a spectacular catch in the back of the end zone for Minnesota to beat Nebraska that night. But it was a hard fought game, and there was a lot of promise shown. If you're going to measure Nebraska 2 or 3 years later now to that performance, you do the math. That was I was in Arizona State in '96 for the 19-0 shutout. That was really bad. That was one of those games where you're going, there's just nothing going right tonight. And Arizona State had some magic. They had the Jake Plummer's the quarterback. They had a really good team that year, and Nebraska could do nothing right. I was there for the Texas Nebraska Big 12 championship game in St. Louis. Again, nothing going right in that game. There are reasons, I think, beyond Nebraska's control as to why that went so bad. But those are two of the most horrific losses I can remember, plus some Miami games and Orange Bowls. Last night was inexcusable. If you're going to measure Nebraska's program's progress by where it began in Minnesota in 2023, they got nicer sleep pods. They got a nicer building, but that was one of the worst performances I've seen by a Nebraska football team. I said there was a lot of love because they don't want Matt Rule to go, but there was no heart on the field at all last night.
And you
Except
didn't
for
think
Archie.
Sure. Mark Kraynak checks in. Kraynak, you have Papa duty with some youth football coming up. So God love you for giving us some time this morning and being with us for a little bit.
I wish we had 3 hours, man. I wish we had 3 hours.
Well, we're working on hour 3 of last night right now.
Yeah.
But
I like the amoebas behind you too, by the way. That's interesting.
It's some sort of art design. As I'm still in Minneapolis at the Graduate. Big shout out to our friends at Lazari's for helping make this road trip possible. Just quick note to them. Appreciate Seth and Greg. But what did you see, man? Because Elijah and I chopped it up last night. We'll add more of our thoughts for sure. Bill, you're not wrong about the effort with just how can that happen? But just from a tackling, from a game plan standpoint, 38 passes, 16 runs, you just didn't get anything established. And I'll tell you what, the reality of Nebraska with if you look at what Minnesota has been this year, the uneven performance early against Cal. Okay, that's a non-conference. That's game 2 of the season or game 3 of the season. And this year with Minnesota, they beat Rutgers in quite a bit of points, but it was a different Minnesota game where they threw all over the yard and put up 38 points. Usually Minnesota wins Big Ten football 14-10. And even against Purdue, the way they came back, they got slaughtered for 260 yards. On the lines of scrimmage, Nebraska was supposed to have the advantage last night, Kraynak, based on what you've seen on film, and it was just completely opposite.
Yeah, and this follows a little bit of Minnesota's history where they seem to, they're similar to Iowa in that they start slow, they get better as the year goes on, they play physically as the year goes on, right? I mean, it's pretty similar. And I think you saw some of that last night. That's probably the most surprising thing that Bill was alluding to is physicality is one thing, but it's also intensity. I'm not sure physicality captures the whole. It's not just that, right? It's intensity. It's being comfortable with contact. It's inviting contact. It's I don't know. It just felt like Minnesota. If there was a brick wall, they would have run through it, and Nebraska would have just kind of bounced back or something. The running backs were running harder. The defenders were smashing through blocks, right? I think they call it block destruction is the new kind of term for that. Minnesota was on an entirely different level than Nebraska. And you hear Coach Rule and the team preach about physicality and that they have physical practices. And
I believe they do.
Yeah. And that they tackle in practice and all that, but you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it watching last night. Nobody watched that game last night. It was like, damn, Nebraska's physical. Right. I mean, maybe at the point of contact making tackles where there would be 2 or 3 guys on a ball carrier. Like there was some of that, right? You can't say that Nebraska did nothing yesterday. They tackle pretty violently. I think when it's not a head on kind of a situation. But yeah, it didn't seem like they had near the level of intensity.
Well, and
it's puzzling.
But they have sleep pods and they've got whirlpools.
Yeah. So they'll be able to recover from all those mean Minnesota hits.
They've got a nice building.
It just wild me that they weren't ready for a Minnesota type game. Minnesota came out and played a Minnesota type game. It's something we talked about. Like, Darius Taylor was the guy preseason. You circled on that team as being the guy to watch out for. He had some injury issues. He was back to himself last night.
For $150.
Nebraska didn't look ready for him.
That's an NFL dude right there.
Nebraska didn't look ready for, as Mark talked about, how unwilling Minnesota was going to be to being blocked. They weren't ready for that. They just weren't physically ready for the fight that they were going to have in Minneapolis, which is shocking based on how things have gone in Minneapolis for about a decade. That was a Minnesota performance. And Minnesota, at some point in October, tends to have that proof of concept game where it all kind of seemingly clicks for them and they start playing their best football at the end of the year. I think we just saw that game from Minnesota last night. And my question does come down to, we didn't talk about this enough, is there anything that needs to be put on Rule for the drama that he caused this week with the Penn State stuff? I mean, with just how not ready that team looked, I think the question does need to be asked if they had their heads in the game or if their heads were in different places this week because of that drama.
He's invited this too, by the way.
He's invited it.
He does the podcasts, and that's good. You see why he does it, but you leave yourself open when you have a team that performs like that.
You leave yourself open to it because you have to ask, would other coaches around the country handle it in that way, being so complimentary of Penn State and trying to use it as leverage mid-season against your own boosters to try to get more money for your football program, which, hey, by the way, if any boosters out there watched that game last night, Matt Rule just lost all his leverage.
Hands are back in the pockets.
A $40 million roster last night still would have gotten their ass kicked by that Minnesota team. I don't care how much your roster was worth. Yeah. That team was not ready for the fight last night. I mean, how hard would it have just been to say?
Not ready for it, didn't want to.
How hard would it have just been to say this past week, get asked about Penn State? I'm not going to talk about other jobs. My feet are here at Nebraska. This is where I'm coaching. Let's talk about Minnesota.
Listen, right. Yeah.
I think to a certain extent, again, you never want to have a team beat you twice. There were the Michigan game exposed Nebraska quite a bit, I think, for its physicality. And I think PJ Fleck watched it and others. Look, if you just come out and you are the more physical team right off the bat, Nebraska will fold. And Minnesota was far and away more physical. I think that's their style anyway. Look, if Minnesota's, if Minnesota has a job to do, they're going to do it themselves. Nebraska's going to call somebody to get it done. That's kind of the way it looked last night. Was if we got to go clear a forest, they're a bunch of lumberjacks who are going to cut down the trees, and Nebraska would call Minnesota to go cut down their trees. And they were more physical. They knew Nebraska would fold, and it did. They knew that if you just bull rush the offensive line, that the pocket's going to collapse. Dillon was at least a little bit more willing to run, and was exposed for why he shouldn't. But look, at least he ran a couple of times for his life. But for the second week in a row, he wasn't the best quarterback on the field. And I think both the quarterbacks that Nebraska's played the last 2 weeks are true freshmen. Minnesota's guy, true freshman.
Yeah.
So Maryland is he's a freshman, but Maryland's quarterback was better. Except Dillon had the great drive in the last 2 minutes. And that dude last night for Minnesota was in control and in command of his team and his offense, ran a game plan to perfection. I was really impressed by their quarterback, but they just came out and they out-physicaled Nebraska, who looks great off the bus again and goes back on the bus battered and bruised. They were tougher. They were stronger. They were more physical. They were more want to. And again, it doesn't matter what Matt Rule says about the Penn State job going forward. He's not going to, there's no way his buddy can sell that at all. If they'd lost last night and fought, Nebraska fans today would be going, wow, Minnesota's really good, but at least we put forth an effort. You can't sell that to Penn State fans going, wait. We saw that on a national stage. That was a job interview. And Yeah, that's not gonna. It's not gonna happen.
And I've seen some Husker fans that were upset last night and this morning that Minnesota, they wouldn't rush the field in Nebraska. This must be their Super Bowl. They love beating
At
Nebraska.
least someone still cares they beat you.
Hey, that is emblematic of the issues of the team last night. Minnesota treated that like a big game, and Nebraska did not. Nebraska treated it like they could walk in there with their talent and go win, whereas Minnesota treated it like it was a fight and they needed to go out and battle to go get a victory. And hey, they earned it. And if you're mad about them rushing the field, okay. I mean,
I thought that was the only good thing about the game.
As Schmidt said, at least somebody still cares about beating Nebraska.
Exactly.
Someone still cares enough to join us via the phone. God love him. Brandon Vogel with us from counterread, counterread.com, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Mark Kraynak is here. The Pride of Fairbury. Bill Doleman is here. Elijah Herbel. Chris Schmidt still stuck in Minnesota. I just got my hotel bill. I'm gonna go side hustle to help pay this thing. Vogues, how are you? What'd you see last night? Thanks for making time this morning.
Thanks. I'm doing well. What did I see last night? I think evidence that Nebraska has a couple of potentially fatal flaws in 2025. Particularly its ability to protect the passer, which we knew after Michigan and had confirmed after Michigan State. It went away for a week, but no, it's back. And I would agree. I heard a bit of what Bill was talking about in terms of physicality, and it sent me back to the Temple Notre Dame game when Pat Kraft, incidentally, now Penn State's AD, said before that game that Temple would have the most physical team on the field. And Nebraska hasn't been able to get to that point yet under Matt Rule, which is perturbing. I'll put it that way.
And I wonder about this too, Brandon. Where is this kind of what they've been the whole time, but it's just sort of now it shows up when you go up against those truth serum teams. I'm stealing that line from you from a few years ago. Where that's where you kind of called Iowa. I think you put Minnesota up there too. It's just that the guys they're not fancy, right? But they are going to play physically. Because if you look at the teams that Nebraska's beaten in recent weeks, I mean it's squeaking by Michigan State, who gets trounced by UCLA and is in a tailspin. It's barely squeaking by Maryland, right? Who's also not performed all that great. But then you go up against a couple teams that are truly competent in the trenches, and you get just smacked, and you don't have any answers whatsoever. Is this kind of where Nebraska's been the whole time, and it's just that's when you'll see it, is when you go against teams that have those qualities?
Yeah, a little bit, I think, because you got to give Nebraska credit for the win over Cincinnati. Which was close, could have gone either way. And Cincinnati, with the defensive line that they have, the linebacking core, like they're kind of a Big Ten West team a little bit right now. But other than that, Michigan State looks awful. Like that result, great for Nebraska to come back and show the kind of wherewithal to do that, but the Spartans are in a tailspin. Maryland, good team, I think, but not that kind of classic physical Big Ten team. And that's one of Maryland's big issues, kind of long term and over multiple seasons. So it's those old Big Ten West teams, which sure Nebraska beat tail spinning Wisconsin last year, but the record against those teams has not been good enough, and it's still hard to figure out why.
Brandon Vogel with us here on the weekend edition Average Joe Sports Show, recapping Nebraska getting thumped by Minnesota. And guys, it's a lot to take in with just how Nebraska got manhandled. That's infuriating when you think you have the air quote better team. Vogues, I want to get your take on the game plan. I mean, what did you think of the play selection? And I know you ended up getting down, so Nebraska had to start throwing it, but they didn't execute. And I know you were down 2 of your linemen, but even from the jump, there's a blueprint out where you get after Nebraska's quarterback for sure. And you were right to talk about that with Michigan. And then everyone else has followed suit. Well, there's a blueprint out there on what to do to Minnesota. If you look at what Rutgers and Purdue did, and, Nebraska had some success protecting last week, and the offense looked great running the football, throwing it, because you got the run game established. Minnesota decided to do that from the jump, and Nebraska did not. And I wonder why.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It'll be an interesting press conference, I think, this week with Holgorsen. Not specifically for the play calling piece of it, but I mean, they were held without a touchdown. That was something from what was thought to be Nebraska offense, at least. It's past. So it was a bit curious, in the opening drive. So Nebraska gets a stop right away, and you're like, okay, this is playing out like exactly how you want it. Now you go on a drive and get some points, because Minnesota had been one of, if not the slowest starting team in the country, perhaps. And Nebraska goes 3 and out right away, 3 passes. You don't kind of, I think, take the physicality to Minnesota with Emmett Johnson's coming off a huge game. He's back in his hometown. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Let's try and establish that. And even though Nebraska was up at the end of the first quarter, it didn't feel like it. Like the ball was in Minnesota's court. The game was to their liking. They were able to sit on it. And, a lot of the talk, and I cautioned about this in the leading up to it, it was like Minnesota's run game was not what it has been, which is true. But I still had a feeling they would come out and just run it right at Nebraska, and they were able to. And it also allowed them to have as much success in the passing game, at least from a completion percentage point of view, as any team has so far. I mean, Minnesota just took control of the game and made it what it wanted it to be, and Nebraska couldn't do that.
What I think is interesting, Brandon, and I mentioned this last night, and I want to get back into it, is the fact that I feel like Minnesota came out and exploited every single thing that we've been talking about on this show and on our shows Monday through Friday as being issues for the Husker team so far this season. And I don't think Nebraska took advantage of anything we talked about as, Minnesota might be a little deficient here. Their quarterback, you can try to confuse them on the back end, whatever it may be. Didn't see any of that, and that probably comes down to the physicality. But I do think PJ Fleck and his staff identified every single weakness that we have been identifying for this Husker team and took advantage of everything, from the pass protection to Nebraska's ability to stop the run to the defensive backs' willingness to tackle. Like everything that we've talked about was on full display last night.
So we should thank PJ Fleck and his staff for being a part of the Average Joe Sports Show family and listening in. And I know he's been a friend of the show over the years. So PJ, good morning. Appreciate you taking to heart all the things that we talk about on the show and applying it to your team's game plan each week, or at least when they play Nebraska. And can I just say this? Nebraska phoned it in yesterday with no effort. Brandon Vogel is phoning it in by giving an effort to be a part of this show.
Yes.
So I think he is to be commended.
Different.
Right? It's not.
Different ways.
It's not a metaphorical statement. He's putting forth the effort to be here today.
But
Well, I appreciate that. Happy to be here. Sorry I couldn't be live on camera. But I mean, I think to
Lucky
Elijah's,
you.
Yeah, it's not the worst one to not be. I think to Elijah's point, with some of these established Big Ten staffs, there's just a lack of like mystique or fear, I guess, from a coaching standpoint. That I felt this way after the Indiana game in a big way last year. Definitely feel that way after most Iowa games, and here we are again with a program that I think there's just seems to be confidence in games like these, that these teams, no matter where they're at, and Minnesota was 4-2. They weren't as struggling to the degree that I think it was quite made out to be.
yeah,
Where they're just like, yeah, we'll just go in there and we'll do what we want. And Nebraska still hasn't figured out a way to prevent that. Your countermeasures in game. Like that's what a lot of this comes down to is, okay, everybody draws up their plan during the week. That first quarter happens and one team usually has an edge, kind of has a little bit more control. and then to become defined by what you do after that. And Nebraska didn't have any great answers last night.
What do you do about the combination of pass protection or lack thereof, play calling by calling a lot of dropbacks, and Raiola's propensity to hold the ball? Because it's like all those things. It's not any one thing. I mean, Emmett Johnson got blown up on a block last night, which will happen against it'll happen against a 240-pound linebacker running full speed sometimes,
and did I say,
right? Like,
I think it was either last week or 2 weeks, I said, God bless Emmett Johnson, because he tries in pass protection, but the man's he's deficient. He has issues.
He had shot put in last night, for the love of God. I mean, that was wrong.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, at least he's out there giving it his all, but he is a liability out there.
Well, yeah. So you have a litany of issues there. So what do you do about all of that? Brandon, please save the season, I guess, is the question I'm asking you right now.
Well, you run the Maryland game plan without the interceptions. I mean, because the Maryland game was a clear reaction to what had happened through 2 Big Ten games, in that Nebraska's like true drop back rate in that game was the lowest of the season. They ran a ton of screens, a ton of quicks, a ton of RPOs. And by the way, Emmett Johnson ran for 170 plus yards. So that was their solution for that. And then with either through choice or Minnesota making the choice for Nebraska, they didn't do that last night. And I haven't gone back and charted every play from last night yet, but like the drop back rate.
Come on, it's 8:15 a.m. Where are you at?
seemed higher than what it was against Maryland. So that's what it is. I mean, that Maryland game was as clear a workaround for their glaring weaknesses as we've seen to this point. Can you execute it against the better teams in the Big Ten? It becomes a question going forward. 5
games left. I know there's been talk of, you want to be careful with Emmett, who's the backup, right? Because you got to have him for the season. You only got 5 games left, right? As far as regular season is concerned. Does anybody here have an issue? And by the way, I think he looks up for the challenge. Does anybody here have an issue with Emmett 22 to 28 carries a game?
No, I have zero Emmett issues. I mean, the kid ran hard.
He's about all you got that you can totally. I think at this point you can say you can totally count on him.
Some counter game going with him. He had some nice jump cuts. He runs passionately, and he just needs a chance to get the football. The thing that was maddening to me, I was talking with Elijah about this last night, is it was just so hard for Nebraska to go get any points. The 2 drives they did get down to the 14-yard line, and then it stalls. You have the fade pass call that this world hates. It's the new swing pass, right? And there's zero belief or want to either or to run it inside the 10. And listen, Nebraska, when it gets heavy, has not been great on short and long, but they just, for whatever reason, man, want to or feel like they have to throw it in with the red zone. But Nebraska is got to be upset, and there's got to be a change eventually. The last 5 games with the demand by the quarterback coach, by the offensive line coach, by the offensive lineman to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. And there were times that the quarterback held the football, especially he had Barney, he had Emmett open to check down on that first and 10 from the 14 or second down, and he just held it and he wouldn't pull the trigger. And it can't continue to go on like that, because I know there were 9 sacks, part of that bar tabs on everybody, but there were wideouts open, and there was enough time to get rid of the football, Vogues, and the quarterback didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, when I think that propensity to hang on to it goes up when it becomes apparent that, oh, they're getting to me. Like the sacks seem to accumulate.
That's counterintuitive, isn't it? Here's
Well,
three guys in a maroon jersey ready to murder me. Let me hold on to it.
You would think so. I mean, and we were talking about it in the counter read chat last night. Like the sacks, the inability to protect the passer for all of the reasons. It's not just the line. It's holding on to the ball a little bit too long. It's all of those pieces of it. Like the struggles in the red zone, for me at least, are probably the second biggest. So Nebraska gets down there that first time right at the end of the first quarter. They run it, don't have much success. Like you knew instantly, well, here comes the fade. And they've scored on some of those, but it's still a coin toss play. And if you don't get it, you're in 3rd and long inside the 10. I think Nebraska's touchdown percentage is 58% after that game, which is, we'll rank in the 80s or 90s nationally by the time we get to the end of the weekend. Like, it's just, and you can feel every time Nebraska gets down there, to use Bob Diaco term, the strain. It's like Nebraska can bang out 49 push-ups, but the 50th one, occasionally they'll get it done, but it's way harder than what you've seen through the first 49. It's really bizarre. But in terms of like fixes for the next 5 games, figuring out a way to be better there would make a pretty big difference.
I think another thing, it's easy because it's generic enough to say, to be like, oh, they didn't make adjustments. Like, okay, what do you mean by that? Last night, one adjustment that I think Nebraska should have made is the way that the refs were calling the game on the perimeter with receivers and defensive. They were allowing hand fighting and pushing and shoving all the way down the field all night. All right. And this is not excuse making for Nebraska, but truly, I mean, Nebraska had receivers getting straight up mugged all the way up until the ball was incomplete and there was a no call, which made the Donovan Jones, some of those calls a little puzzling, although they absolutely were pass interference calls. At least one of them was definitely that. That was happening all night on both sides, and the refs were letting it go. And it's as though Nebraska's offensive staff didn't notice that and kept calling plays that were probably not going to work well, considering that they were letting their receivers get mugged like that. Right? Did you see it that way too? Of just like, man, if they're not going to call that, they don't. Fade routes are probably not a good idea.
Don't call it, man.
Yeah, trying to like, throw in contested stuff's probably not going to work out for you.
Fade routes are for 7-on-7 in the summer. That's when they work, right?
Or for Calvin Johnson, right?
Calvin Johnson. I swear every time I see a 7-on-7 recruiting video, it's a fade route to a 6'3" receiver, and it always works every time. Yeah. But in the fall, unless you're dropping dimes, ain't nobody picking up the rest of the change. I mean, when Nebraska gets inside the 20, gets into the red zone, closer to the 10, I'm just thinking, get Cunanan ready, or get Archie ready, because it might end up being 4th down and 39, and we got a punt. I mean, if Nebraska scores a touchdown, if it gets to the 10-yard line, I'm surprised anymore. I mean, it should be automatic. And it used to be that way. I'm mystified by the lack of success, the lack of I shouldn't say consistency, because the play calling is fairly consistent. Throw it, run it, throw a fade, kick a field goal. That's the consistency of Nebraska's game inside the 10, or get sacked and punt.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the thing is that the fade, it was there, like a better ball. It would have been a touchdown, and you saw Raiola, at least on the TV broadcast after that throw, being like, that's on me.
Oh my God. If I see that.
But I think to Mark's point, about kind of seeing it adjusting to how the game was being called, Nebraska's answer against Michigan State, which was a little bit different because of the win too, but was when they were struggling to protect the passer again, was to quicken things up, really go to the screen game, and we saw one early in the second half, and at that moment, it was still 7-6, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, here, that's the adjustment. Here's Nebraska's going to get this offense going a little bit, and it didn't happen, and it's a little bit baffling. Like I said, I'm interested in every Holgorsen press conference because they're all pretty fun and entertaining and to the point. But this one will be an interesting one this week.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here on a weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show, and Brandon, whenever I just think about, I guess, what's next for this football team, you look at the press conference next week. I don't know where this team goes, because you saw a Minnesota team. We talked about this, that gets better as the year goes on. And that was proven last night. They have cleaned up some of their mistakes. I am not convinced that any of Nebraska's their issues, their problems have been cleaned up so far this season, because the same things that were rearing their ugly head against Michigan were rearing their ugly head last night.
Yeah, it's tough because it doesn't feel like there's a progression throughout the season. And that's been, I think, a long-standing issue with Nebraska. And, I wrote after the Maryland game that I felt like Nebraska had kind of entered a phase 2 and under Matt Rule. And boy, do I feel foolish now, because then you have a game like Minnesota where you don't even put up a touchdown. So it's going to be back to the drawing board. The game just finished a few hours ago, it feels like. So I try to be careful with in these moments of this is still the Nebraska team we kind of thought it was, in both good ways and bad. And the bad ones take center stage right now. But they'll have a chance to get back to things, and you get back home. Before the season, I picked them to lose to Minnesota before the season. I didn't do it week of because I thought Nebraska was a bit better than I expected. Get back home. That Northwestern, they have Michigan State today. Is that who they play? I don't remember. Yep. They're going to win. So that Northwestern is going to come into this game with 2 losses. It's going to be a chance to prove something again, which isn't how it was all supposed to go, but it's where we're at right now.
And Brandon, as you look at what's next year, are you surprised that by the end of that football game, when it was 24-6, you didn't take the quarterback that was getting harassed off of the field? And you can sell a lot of different ways as a coaching staff with injury concerns, games out of reach or whatnot. I was a little surprised you didn't give TJ Lateef a possession or two at the end of that football game, just with how I thought Rilo was out there seeing ghosts, not playing confident. And with getting sacked 9 times, it feels like an injury risk to leave that guy out there, and that's how you can sell it. But I'm a little surprised you didn't see Lateef at the end of that football game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, particularly with the context of the game itself. You would have had the built-in reason to be like, well, let's get a different look. Rilo has been harassed all night. This is a valuable opportunity for Lateef to play on the road in Big Ten play and at least get a drive. But also, maybe at least get a little spark. It would have been too late at that point for it to build to a full fire, but would have been nice to have a little something positive coming out of it.
Well,
and I see people in the stream saying, well, you're trying to save the red shirt for TJ. What I've seen this year is TJ is not going to get to 4 games because this coaching staff is not going to take Rilo off the field no matter what happens. And I think last night was the proof of that.
It's part of the contract, Elijah.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know, man. It was just a miserable performance, and you called it out, Elijah, of just it's like Minnesota studied and exploited everything that ails Nebraska, and it's the concerning thing is that you hear them talk about physicality. They have physical practices. It doesn't show up on the field in the trenches. I don't know how else to say it. And is that Donovan Raiola's fault? Is it Dylan's fault for holding it too long? Is it recruiting? Yes, the answer is all of it, right? It's all of it. But I don't know what you do about the want to part of it. I don't know what you do about that. Minnesota flat out wanted it more and played like it. I don't know. It's puzzling, although I don't know if we should be super surprised, because when was the game where Nebraska just came out and really set the tone physically against a competent opponent?
Oh,
they've done it against crappy teams. I was
going to say Houston Christian and Akron.
Yeah,
I mean
against a competent team.
Maryland.
To
me, it was just a week ago. I mean, they came out and made a point to run the football.
Yeah,
and set the tone that way. They got fired off the ball. Now, didn't help losing Rocco last night. That dude's, God love him. And Pritchett, your two best run blockers. I mean, and Evans is fine, but there's just no answer. I mean, the position that the team was put in last night was not one of a plan for success. I mean, or what you thought you could do to the opponent, that was not even close to what you were so far off, right? With how you thought you could win that game. And I think all the points have been spot on with just even early on with how physical Minnesota was in the secondary to get separation for the wideouts, how long Nebraska held the football with some of the routes they called, and then the run game not being what it needed to be. And then Minnesota getting downhill. Their confidence jumped, especially after that 71-yard run. They said, let's go back to it. And Butler knew it was going to happen. He said it earlier in the weekly press conference. So I just wonder if internally Nebraska was weary of what maybe was to come. Who knows how the practices were. Nebraska's tackling was a nightmare. And you know what you're going to get with Minnesota when you come up here, when you play them, and you got to try and be ready. And Nebraska was absolutely not ready for it.
Yeah. Look, Nebraska fans, unfortunately, are used to losing over the last 20 plus years, but Nebraskans will never accept lack of effort. And that is probably the most enraging thing for anybody, to go to a place like Minnesota or any game, but to go to Minnesota and put forth an effort where it just, not even put forth an effort. That's the thing I think that makes people most angry, is that you got out physicaled, and Nebraska, the birth of strength and conditioning, got manhandled and didn't mind it.
It was a culture win. It was a culture win, like Flex said about Frost a few years ago.
No, I think that's fairly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska looks better off the bus than it did a couple of years ago because they can afford the bling now. But on the field, when you get manhandled like that with that kind of effort and lack of want to, that's the most unacceptable thing to a Nebraska sports fan, not just a Nebraska football fan. If you get rolled because you didn't put forth the fight and you are out muscled, this is supposed to be the like I said, the birthplace of strength and conditioning, and you're lifting to look good, not just. That's the frustrating thing about it for everybody.
I mean, the gold standard in the Big Ten, and I think this is what this game showed to me most of all, remains being a team that the other coaches don't want to play. And Minnesota is that. They might be 500, they might be 8-1, but you might beat Minnesota, you might lose to Minnesota. But I think if you polled the conference coaches, they'd be like, yeah, they're no fun to play. Iowa's that way. I think Illinois under Bielema is that way. I think Penn State, for all the talent it had, was not that way. In terms of teams are just like, yeah, that's not going to be a fun day. No matter what. They might play well, they might play poorly, but it's not going to be fun. Nebraska has not been able to achieve that basically in its entire time in the Big Ten, minus maybe like the early Pelini early Pelini years in the conference. And until they get back to that, I don't know how much things will really truly change until they find that sort of identity.
Vogues, what's happening, partner with Counter Read? You and Aaron Sorensen do an amazing job. How can folks get on board and subscribe?
Head to counterread.com. That'll get you pointed in the right direction. I don't know what I'm going to write about for Monday, as you can probably tell from this discussion. There's a lot to process, but maybe we'll just have office hours if anybody wants to engage in some group therapy. We'll be there for that. But no, I'll probably come up with a newsletter for Monday. Try to make sense of what we saw.
I like changing the name of the show, like on Saturday morning instead of the weekend edition. It's group therapy. That's good. I like that.
I'm open for whatever. I'm open for gas donations. I'm open for. I mean, we're gonna have a little intervention with Junior today, just on behavior and getting lost with his fraternity brothers during parts of the third quarter. But he knew what he was doing. He didn't want to watch. So,
Vogues, did also get lost with him? Was he out there?
I don't know. Vogues, appreciate you much. We'll give you a holler soon.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
There he is. We welcome in the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, with us. Sharpie, thanks for spending time this morning. How are you?
Good morning, boys. How did you enjoy last night? The grown-ups versus the kids. Nebraska's been punching down for 2 weeks, and they got punched in the face last night.
Nebraska's still ranked, though. They got that going. Number 25 until Sunday.
Yeah, they screwed up everybody's weekend.
More sacks allowed than anybody
in
America right now. Now, they'll probably get passed today because they have more games played.
Mark, they gave up more sacks than they scored points last night.
Oh, God. Why you got to put it like that?
Because I think we need to have. I think we need to have open, honest conversations after a game like last night. Because you know what? I think first of all, Nebraska has been playing with their food for 2 weeks, and they've been punching down, and they've been able to beat a couple of teams because they've had guys that have made plays at key situations. Last night, they lost a football game to a head coach who, by the way, when it's Nebraska time, PJ Fleck gets them to play well. And his identity hasn't looked like his past identity this year with Lindsey as a quarterback. So they were throwing it more. They couldn't stop the run. I mean, look what Purdue did to him last week. But man, when it's this week, he gets his team to play well and they lean into their identity. And that's the line of scrimmage is, Nebraska had messed around for 2 weeks. They'd been on the high wire, and PJ Fleck, who punted the ball, guys, 4th and short at midfield in this game. Mm-hmm. He said, and he cut the wire and you fell into the canyon. And I don't know. I look at it this morning and I wake up and I go, okay, now we're all trying to figure out where the season is 7 games in, where this program is of the guy that's running it trying to climb the mountain, and he's building the apparatus to build the mountain, but how can he get to the top? Like, maybe this is a good reminder that Nebraska had messed around for 2 weeks and had gotten away from what made them good, or they want to be good. And they got reminded that they have a Minnesota-Iowa problem. And then I'm going to throw another one out there. Maybe they just have a punching up problem because, guys, if you listen to Rule last night and you listen to what he said after Indiana, it's almost word for word in terms of we didn't expect this. So I don't know. There's 7 games in. This one reminds you that, man, there's a ways to go, but it also reminds you got some hard discussions about why you win in the Big Ten with an identity and with hog mollies up front, whether they're trying to block you or tackle you.
And speaking of blocking and tackling, I got to get out in a couple minutes because I got to take class of 2031 to his practice.
Okay, I love that.
In a little bit. But when you talk about so one of the issues obviously is Dylan Raiola and holding the ball. It's one of the issues. It's not the only issue, right? So everybody pinning it on him is. I don't think he's a talent that you just throw him on the scrap heap. Well, he's done. But it is a peculiar trait, right? Like I can't remember having discussions about holding the ball too long necessarily. Maybe a little bit with Taylor Martinez. It's weird. It's a weird situation to deal with where you're like, do do you practice throwing the ball? How do you practice that? Like it's I don't know what it's on Dylan. It's on the coaches to get Dylan to do it. But I also wonder, okay, so say Nebraska fixes that. Does that fix the season? Not necessarily. It helps you a little. That's still going to be an incomplete ball. It's still going to be kind of a loss of down. I think you have,
you have the worst case scenario of Dylan and his propensity to do what he does and a porous offensive line. And they all come together when you don't win. A lot of guys, Minnesota didn't really do anything special last night. They just lined up and they beat Nebraska's ass. They said, we're going to beat you one-on-one. But here's the thing. Here's a bigger picture about Dylan. Last night was his 20th game that he started. Why are these hard questions for a five-star quarterback starting his 20th game in college football? It's the story, it seems like, more for the wrong reason than the right reason with Dylan. Mm-hmm. And last night was a night where I don't know what Nebraska was trying to accomplish from when they got off the bus, because you look at the opening possession and it was pass. Then there was the run of 12 yards in the third quarter by Emmett. And then it was pass. And it's, when you're having a bad night, what is your fallback? And sometimes if you're having a bad night up front, the quarterback pulls things out of his ass and you're like, wow, here we go. He couldn't do that last night. He got beaten by a redshirt freshman who played mistake-free football in Drake Lindsay. But 20 games into the season, the conversation about Dylan should not be where it's at.
Yeah.
And is that a Dylan thing? Is that a program thing? Is it a thing of both? Or is it the fact that five guys up front are letting down the quarterback and the running back?
Yes.
Because Emmett last night, 14 carries, 63 yards. There were a lot of those yards he had to create on his own.
There was probably 17 missed tackles that he caused, something like that. I mean, some like 4 on one play a few times. It ain't on him. At this point, we've seen enough. We're over halfway through the season. He is absolutely your best option. Period.
Mm-hmm. Well, are you gonna feature a game plan around who? Are you going to feature a game plan around the quarterback? Are you going to feature a game plan around the running back?
Yeah, period.
Well, I don't. That's a great question, Schmidt, because
what are you good at, and what do you want to do?
Well, that's the thing. You're 7 games into the season, and I don't know that we can put our finger on what Nebraska week to week is good at, because you're not good up front. And I think Holgorsen gets spooked when guys get their ass kicked. And I would too. Yeah. I would too, because then you don't have options, because all of a sudden you have the likes of Anthony Smith is in your face. And so where was the screen game last night? Where was the mesh? Where were slants? Where was a toss? Where was a jet sweep?
Drops?
Anything. I think, Nebraska just got beat so bad up front that they had no plan B. And that's kind of scary, because now it's scary that Spindler could be out for maybe longer than the year. Pritchett will be out at least for the first half. I mean, you haven't developed depth. I mean, what are they doing? Are they just starting now every game with one hand tied behind their back, and they're just like, hey, let's let it rip. Dylan, go make plays. Dylan can't make plays on his own. That's the problem.
That's where I was going to go. Captain made the point earlier. After a 3-interception game, he thought Dylan was scared of throwing more picks in a game like that last night, and I think that could be fair. But the concern to me is that the backup plan is, all right, let's let Dylan go and do something.
Yeah,
that's
right.
And you know what, Captain and Elijah, you're right, because they put it on his tab, and all of a sudden he feels like he's got to do that. So he makes the play. Hey, it looks great on the highlight reel, and we have fun with it. In the offseason, go, man, Dylan made a great play there to Hunter. That's actually a dumbass play. Okay, because that had pick 6 written all over it. There's nobody on that side of the field, and it's going back the other way. Nebraska got lucky, and they were able to complete it. It just, we're 7 games in, and they have no identity on offense, and a lot of it has to do with your identity should be what Minnesota's.
There's an identity. It's just a crappy identity.
Yeah. Minnesota's been shifting more to throwing the football because Taylor's been hurt. He comes back last night, and he was huge for them. Okay, that was a thing I talked about on my show, is if Taylor, now healthy, how they feature him, That's going to be a big part of this game is, Nebraska's still searching for that identity with all these pieces and how do they fit together. And man, that's uncomfortable 7 games in, but the offensive line has to bail you out in games like this. Nebraska has a Minnesota-Iowa problem, 2 programs that they may be having crappy days at the office leading up to your game, but you know what you're going to get when you step on the field with them. And if they limit mistakes and they have guys that make a play or two and you don't, you're going to get beat 13-10. You're going to get beat 24-6.
Weekend editions here with the Average Joe Sports Show, the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Pride of Fairbury's Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Sunday live tomorrow at 10:30 as well. But beating up this Minnesota-Nebraska game as Huskers get dominated. Just a quick reset. But there's all sorts of sentiment, Sharpie and Bill and Elijah, that Nebraska fans thought you were past this moment where it's one thing to lose, but it's another thing to get physically dominated. And I think you said it from the get-go, Gary, that last 2 weeks may have masked some problems, because when push comes to shove, it was a nasty reminder last night of what wins in the Big Ten in October and November.
It's not just the last 2 games. It's the 2 games against Akron and Houston Christian. Those were sugar highs. And the stats got padded, and the games went exactly how they should have gone. So credit to Nebraska for that, and not, eking out a win over South Alabama or something like that, or Arkansas State. I mean, they beat those teams like they should beat those teams, but those were sugar highs, because then you got in against Michigan, who just went like, we'll just manhandle you and we'll bull rush you, and put out the blueprint for everybody else that if you manhandle and put forth an effort and you out physical that line, you're going to get to the quarterback because he holds the ball too long, and he's not going to throw the ball away, because if I hear completion percentage being so high the rest of the season, I'm going to go crazy, because that's like the thing we keep hearing about. Well, he's still completing 70% of his passes. Oh, okay. Well, that's all well and good. But, Nebraska, the Cincinnati game, Nebraska came out, beat Cincinnati. Those other 2 games should be exhibition games that don't count on the final ledger, because Nebraska's been exposed week after week after week. Now, they did have the comeback win against Maryland. I got that. They ran the ball well against a really bad run defense, did what they were supposed to do. But there were still 3 interceptions in that game. And they should have probably lost that game, but had a nice comeback at the end. But last night, again, I go back to what I said at the beginning. If you want a measuring stick, the Matt Rule era began 3 years ago in Minnesota, where Jeff Sims did throw a touchdown pass. And a couple of years later, if you're going to measure Nebraska at Minnesota they got manhandled last night, and that didn't happen 3 years ago. So I don't know where the progress is if you're going to look at those 2 games.
Well, I think you have to is last night a program eye opener, or was it a bad night at the office where it's a reminder of how far you have to go, but you still have some good things? There's also the part of last night in a game like that where guys have to step up. Part of the Dillon conversation as well. When they did have chances to make plays in the passing game, Dillon's got to live with his wide receivers, and they got to figure out the deep ball, like the relationship. Because there were a couple of times that ball was open. Now, Hunter didn't do him any favors by dropping it. But look at, for example, in these kind of games, and this is Minnesota's culture, where one man goes down and you step up, and there's going to be days where you don't have enough men to step up, so you get beat. I'm sure Minnesota this morning, after winning last night, they're going, man, we'd love to have that Cal game back. Yeah. All of a sudden, Minnesota's going, wow, we go to Iowa City next week. We might have turned our season around. Nestor did not play for them last night. They had 2 cornerbacks beat up, and they had Brian, who got hurt a couple of times during the game. He's a guy that stepped up. Who stepped up last night for Nebraska when they were going south? Who was that cut stopper? Who was that guy on that 14-play scoring drive for Minnesota that said, you know what, this is bull. We've been good third down defense. Now we can't get off the field on third down against Maryland and against Minnesota. I'm going to go make a play. They didn't have that last night, and Minnesota did.
Well, and the concern to me is you let off this question by asking kind of what is the game, and is it a referendum on what needs to happen moving forward, kind of. And the concern to me is that Matt Rule made it clear this week, the next step forward is to make this a $40 million roster. And he just needs more talent in the door. A $40 million roster does not fix the desire that was not there last night.
Physicality and mentality.
That's the concern to me. You lost the game. I should have said physicality and mentality. You didn't have either of the two. Minnesota kicked your ass in both phases of physicality and mentality. A $40 million roster doesn't fix that. And that's Matt Rule's path for the future. And I don't think the boosters are going to watch that game last night and say, man, here's a check for $10 million. Matt, that $40 million roster is going to fix everything. It's not.
The bigger picture discussion too, fellas, with how the week started, the narrative, the attention, the publicity. It's great for Nebraska to be leading ESPN.com. It's great for Nebraska to have the stage, but you can't go out Friday night and put that on tape as everyone's patting your coach on the back. His name's being attached to this opening. There's some juice.
No, by the way, I don't think that changes. I think, yeah. If you're an AD and one game changes your opinion, you already thought highly of that person. I wonder you as an AD.
Well, your AD is going to still have your back. But
I think the noise of a Rule Penn State still remains the same. But I don't.
It's a tougher sell of the board.
He was not at the top of your board outside of the connection. So
I want to ask you. You talked to Jay Paterno, Sharpie, on your morning show.
Yeah.
What was the vibe you got there?
They're going to look for a fit. I don't know. I think there's, here's last night's a reminder. And Matt Rule is a cheaper version of James Franklin. He's definitely a builder. And as he's trying to climb the mountain and it gets treacherous, how do you build the next ladder that you climb up? Penn State needs a closer. So I don't think the Penn State hot board all of a sudden takes Rule off of it. Because if you're an athletic director and one game sways your entire opinion of somebody after you've done your due diligence, then I worry about the athletic director. Because you could go, oh, they had a bad night at the office. And you know what? We got better talent. We got better offensive linemen. And we got a better strength and conditioning program. But I didn't think he was like the main guy. This is about Nebraska. This is about when you deal with success, when you have success, how do you deal with it? Because there is a stat, and I think it was Stu Manji last night put this out. This is the biggest stat of the night outside of the 9 sacks, only 6 points scored. When Matt Rule has 5 wins, his preceding record is 1-10. When he gets to 5 wins. Guys.
Why?
Do you not know how to deal with success? Do you not know how to grab the thing that is out there? I mean, that's just a wild stat. That's why, I think they have to figure out, was last night kind of a reminder of where you are, or was it a bad night at the office where you didn't match the energy that Minnesota had and they went and beat you up? I think last night is the worst way to lose a football game if I'm in Nebraska's shoes, because you didn't get X's and O'd and you didn't get out-talented. You basically got lined up in the middle of the ring and repeatedly got punched and punched and punched. And they sucked your soul out and they took your pride and you lost a football game and you're like, wow, I think we're a better team. And you know what? For the first time in about a decade, Nebraska went to the Twin Cities and had a better roster. But doesn't, in this day and age, we've seen it. This is college football, week to week, man. A better roster doesn't guarantee a victory. What guarantees a victory is I know what I'm going to do every single week, whether I lose my plan A or plan B. And some weeks it's going to work. Some weeks it's not. Last night, Nebraska lost their plan A, partial of their plan B. Minnesota said, you know what? We can run the ball on these guys because they're not stopping us. We haven't run the ball all year. Let's just continue to run the football and lean into our identity. And they won a game where we know that game means a ton to Minnesota. Beating a school like Nebraska.
Oh, yeah. and it underscores, I think, and I said this earlier, why Nebraska lost that football game. Minnesota treated it like a big game. Yeah. Nebraska did not. And PJ Fleck's had a chip on his shoulder ever since. I think he thinks Scott Frost ran up the score on him back in 2018, which he did. Yeah. Scott Frost had that game out of reach, and he goes for a deep shot on 1st and 10 from his own 40-yard line. And Stanley Morgan, 60 yards later, makes it a 3-score game. Minnesota wasn't coming back. I think PJ Fleck holds a grudge over that moment, doing that in his first season.
Fleck did his boy a solid with settling for a field goal. It could have been worse. Well, I mean, 24 to 6 is you're a 7.5 point favorite, at one point a 9.5 point favorite. You got dominated. It was absolutely atrocious trying to score points and put a drive together. And you had to work so hard to even get field goals, Sharpie.
Yeah. I think I said this last week, that if you looked at the way the season has gone and Nebraska being good in the first quarter, Minnesota struggling in the first half, you kind of had to come out and establish who you were right away. And Nebraska's first possession was garbage. It was just a bad first possession. And I think that kind of sent a tone to Minnesota of, okay, because if you go on the road and you just watch Purdue run it down the throats of Minnesota, wouldn't you say, let's do the same thing? Let's establish our let's announce ourselves with some authority here. And they didn't do that. And then Fleck was kind of playing Rule, and Fleck outcoached Rule last night. I mean, Minnesota outcoached Nebraska. Is when they punted it 4th and short at midfield, he said, okay, let's see how you guys respond. Nebraska didn't respond, and so then they said, there's an opening there. We're in it to win it. We got a chance. They're not going to come in here and do what they've been doing. And it just juiced up Minnesota. I don't know. Nebraska was lost from the jump. I just didn't like it from the beginning, whether it be the game plan or just things that we got reminded, guys, that, Nebraska has gotten away with the last 2 weeks, and Minnesota said, not so fast, my friend.
That punt was after a timeout too, wasn't it?
Yep.
Which was just, that to me was, we don't respect you.
Yeah.
We're just going to flip the field because we know you're not going to be able to move the ball. You're down. We're going to keep you down. We're going to demoralize you with our defense. Instead of, they had the tush push for the first touchdown, which there was movement that wasn't called, but that's not why Nebraska lost. But they with that punt on 4th and inches, after what they'd been doing, to me was the ultimate slap in the face. We just do not respect you at all. And everything we're doing is working. You are folding. And so we're just going to punt it and flip the field. That to me was maybe the moment of the night between the two teams, and the mentality and the physicality, everything right there. Let's call a timeout and punt.
I want to try and go a little bit of feel good for 2 seconds. 2 seconds here on
a day like today.
Hey, Kyle Cunanan has become very reliable. Archie Wilson, Archie Wilson has the punt that pins Minnesota down deep.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, hey, you're going to flip the field. So at least those two guys.
14 for 98. Yeah, and another death march of a drive. I got to shout out Chuck and his dad, and also the grandson, Adam. All three, first time. Grandpa's 90, grandson's in his early 20s, dad's, in his late 50s, and all three for the first time together got to go on a road trip together to see a Nebraska game. And Grandpa Chuck's from the Pershing, Petersburg, region, kind of by Elgin, and they all made it, man. So they were really invested, and all three generations first time together on a road game, and of course, they're, God love them, headed to the bar right now going, what the F was that? But the point is that's what you see a lot of with these road trips, Gary and Bill and Elijah, as long as you've covered them. And that's pretty cool. Now, the end result makes you think twice about doing it again. But
It-
there was some
it
momentum and
does.
some juice heading into last night. There's a sobering reconsideration going on right now.
Well, look at like just the one game to the next. The people that made the trip to Maryland, the players after the game, and
that was memorable and cool for so many.
Last night is one of those nights that fans who invest so much in the program and travel the road games, you start second guessing how long you're going to do this when you see something like that. Yeah. I think we can all, there's winners and losers in this sport. And that's the beauty, when you wake up on Saturday, you got a 50-50 chance. And that's why I said earlier in the week, and I still stick with this, I'm enjoying 5-1 more than I enjoyed 6-0 and 16, because Nebraska could win every game on their schedule. They could lose every game on their schedule. So it gives me something every week to look forward to. But I think when you have a game like this, we can all go, you know what? Minnesota had better talent. When it was go time, they made plays. I think the manner in which last night you lost is the one that is very unsettling, that ticks you off, that says this is not the first year of the head coach. It's not the first year of the offensive line coach. This is Nebraska. And God, there's one thing Minnesotans and Nebraskans can agree on. We all hate Iowa. But you know what? There's one thing that Nebraskans can agree on. They'd love to have what Minnesota and Iowa have as identities on a weekly basis.
Gary, let me ask you, with the physicality Nebraska didn't show last night. You see a lot of fans talking about this both last night and this morning. Is it time for Donovan Rilo to be on the hot seat?
Oh God, yes. And you know what? Here's the thing. You can say, okay, you got to recruit. They they got some young guys that are learning. I think guys were into the no looking back, because now let's start looking at technique. Okay, let's don't look at talent. Let's look at development. Let's look at technique. That's strictly on the offensive line crew that are looking there. Nebraska, and this isn't new. It just was a reminder last night. They don't have a ton of athletic offensive linemen. Okay, but last night was just a stark reminder that there's technique issues. There is development issues. There are guards that are playing tackles. There is a program that isn't winning money battles for tackles. All of that comes together. Hell yes. I mean, I think unless there's a drastic improvement in the last 5 games, you got to figure out why the offensive line is not being road graders on a consistent basis. And why aren't there more of them? Here's the thing that's scary, guys, is everybody's like, you got to take Gatul out of the game. Okay. You got to get Blank out of the game. Nebraska,
where do you go?
Nebraska really hasn't developed depth. Remember, Kraynak was a tackle who now has been moved to guard, and he's going to be forced to play a little bit more. Where's Sam Sledge? Where's Bricks? Where's Majacek? It's a world that gets exposed, and Nebraska can't move forward. They can get Trey Taylor to come in here. They can have Dylan play another year. They're not going to move forward until they get offensive linemen that in five across the board on a consistent week-to-week basis are guys that when they say, hey, I'd like to win the Joe Moore Award, we go, yeah, instead of
yeah. Because that's very real, man. Sharpie, I know we'll talk tomorrow with Sunday Live at 10:30 with the Average Joe Sports Show. What do you think now moving forward with what's on the docket here? As you look at Nebraska at 5-2, you've got Northwestern coming in. We know there's some injury question marks on the offensive line for Nebraska moving forward. Northwestern could be 5-2 as well. Then you've got the California double dip. You've got Penn State. You have Iowa. I mean, was last night not just a sobering moment, a reminder? I mean, does last night derail this season?
Great question. I think what last night did to me is everything is week to week now. Instead of going big picture, I think it's week to week with this team of what are you going to get when you're facing Northwestern? All right, erase the slate. What are you going to get? What kind of a team you're going to get when you play USC? That's where I think last night did to me. Instead of going big picture, I think you go week to week on
What do
where
you
this
what
team is.
what do you think?
Here's what the picture cannot have anymore: the surrender whites. Can we no longer wear the surrender whites? All right, that's one thing. But I think Nebraska beats Northwestern. I think
This
they're
place
going
will
to come
go.
back.
This place will burn if they don't.
I know, but I go back. They got manhandled last year against Indiana. Got embarrassed. Didn't see that coming.
Then they
And
responded.
They responded with a really good effort. Losing effort, but a really good effort against Ohio State. They come back.
Then what happened?
I got it. But this goes to the week thing. I think they come back. I think they play really well. I think they get a win at home. Now you're bowl eligible, and we're going to hear after the game though next week. Well, if you're with us or you're against us, that now they're going to circle the wagons a little bit because of the criticism deserved that they're getting from last night through today, and they're going to get all week. You're gonna hear them say, we're playing for ourselves a little bit. I don't think you're going to go Aiden Childs and say, I don't care about the fans anymore. But they're certainly listening to the criticism, and I think that's going to be kind of an all for one for all type thing. And Nebraska wins the game and kind of keeps it to themselves next week. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that there's a real fracture though between the feel goods of a couple of weeks ago and this program going forward, and how Nebraska fans are feeling about this team and the season.
You can quickly move on from it being just a bad night at the office by how you perform against Northwestern. I think one thing, guys, we can talk about tomorrow. We've talked a lot about the offense, rightfully so. Nebraska's got a tackling problem, and they've also got thank you Minnesota last night, because you reminded Nebraska they got some guys that cannot play east-west, sideline to sideline, that are better going north-south. Man, Donovan Jones, I don't know if they had his picture up in the locker room all week. They picked on him when he got off the bus. And Nebraska's poor tackling that led to leaky yardage, that's not just a Minnesota thing. We saw that last week. We saw that against Michigan State. We saw that against Michigan. That's not trending in the right direction, because that hasn't been fixed. And that's not just a, hey, last night they tackled poorly against Minnesota. That's been coming. So I think that's another discussion this week as well.
Well, you saw the same play that Haynes ripped off his 75-yard touchdown for. It was that handoff right side. Let's get Nebraska's safety one-on-one with the running back. And it was the same result. The difference being that it was 71 yards and first and goal for Minnesota. Haynes took it to the house. But it was the same design, the same scheme to get Nebraska's third level. Again, first and second level didn't make the play, or didn't get off a block to make the play. And
then it was the same bad angle from the third level.
I mean, and it's the same guy that's in. It's played 500 years of football. Can't happen.
Yeah.
What I don't get is I believe, and they didn't show it last night, but I believe Nebraska goes about it the right way with what they do in practice. I think Matt Rule is one of the coaches in college football that tries to be physical during the week, and they hit, they tackle, or they'll do more of it than some other programs. Sure as hell didn't show up on Friday night last night when it came to tackling, when it came to getting off blocks. I mean, there were a few times where guys did try to get free of a Minnesota offensive player and make a tackle, only to get collapsed upon, and there was not a lot of help. So I don't know what to tell you, man. They've got to get it figured out, and it's this deep into the season. You don't know if that's possible. They might be what they might be.
You know what also was a disrespect last night to Nebraska's defense? How many times did Lindsey go empty backfield and Nebraska got zero pressure? I think unofficially, in my count, Drake Lindsey got hit twice last night in the pocket, but they went empty, not thinking, hey, we got to respect Nebraska's going to bring somebody. Let's keep a running back in. They went empty, and Nebraska still couldn't get to Lindsey. And that was uncomfortable last night. And that's also something that's kind of been an issue. Is it guys winning one-on-one battles, or do we have to bring extra pressure? I mean, it's
4, 5, 6 for sure. Sharpie, before we get you out, partner, thank you, Gary Sharp, with this Iron Horse Weekend Edition, Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on YouTube 7 days a week for you. AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod on Twitter. You're connected down in Miami, my friend. How the hell does that keep happening to Miami and Cristobal, where Miami's on the doorstep for a championship, and here comes little old Louisville to take the air out of Miami 24-21. That's on a national scale. Yeah. That's a win that Louisville pulled off last night.
Isn't that you know what, guys? And that's
kind of Miami's MO, isn't it? Screw up the big moments.
Yeah, a little bit. They have that one game a year where they stub their toe, but isn't that what college football is?
It is.
I mean,
right?
College football is so week to week now. You know,
but Nebraska can't be in that category.
No, but there are some times where, you might win a game this year where you go, man, it's week to week. Nebraska wasn't favored. I mean, hell, they were 7-point favorite in this game and blew it. I think college football, I think the bottom teams are better. The elite teams are still elite, and there's very few of them. And then the middle teams are super competitive. I think it's a week to week thing in college football. And I think that's what makes it so great. I mean, you've already had 2 ranked teams lose on Friday. We have a really good slate of games this weekend. Who knows what's going to happen? It's the challenge of week to week where you never know what's going to happen. We're not, and that's why I say Nebraska could win every game on their schedule. They could lose every game on their schedule. I think that makes it more interesting because it makes it, you got to dial in and you got to be ready to play every single week because there are no more Kansas States of the late 80s on your schedule week after week. Everybody, because of the landscape of college football, things are starting to even out a little bit, or the teams that used to be in the Sahara, they have more of a bump to them that they have dudes that can play as well. They have play sheets, they have headsets, and it reminds you that every week you got to come to play. But what is that thing that when you don't come to play that you have that you can fall back on? And that's what Nebraska doesn't have. Nebraska doesn't have a plan B. Hell, they might not have a solid plan A, but I think you can make statements by how you win the game. Not that you won the game, but how you won the game. And I think that's what Minnesota did last night as a reminder to where Nebraska is. And I think a reminder of Louisville has Jeff Brom. In those big moments, they perform well. Miami, when your quarterback isn't playing well and he's a turnover machine, what do you have to make up for that?
Man.
Can I ask a question? Just point of information.
One more thing.
Has anybody ever seen an offensive lineman get ejected for targeting?
I know, and I thought that was absolute hot garbage. You don't have to. Here's the thing: if you're Pritchett and you don't go finish that block, you're going to get your ass kicked in the meeting room. So he was being aggressive and just led with his head there. I mean, it wasn't, off the top rope, people's elbow body slam. He just finished in the block. I thought that was crap.
Do you guys
I thought they were looking for something?
So I tweeted this out because I'm curious on Monday, usually when they respond, like I hope they respond with what the reasoning was in the replay office of what they were looking at. I don't think it'll be overturned. He's going to be out. I guess he won't be out from Northwestern. Yeah, so he got to spend his half out of football. I would like to see the Big Ten just put something out on what they were seeing and why they called it that way. But yeah, I mean, it's rare. You might see one offensive player every couple of years get thrown out for targeting, but that was at the worst case scenario. And once they lost Spindler to the injury, damn, it was a crapshoot. And then you don't have Ramir Johnson in the backfield to block.
Yeah.
I mean, Emmett, God bless Emmett. Emmett got destroyed.
That was a shot put, man.
Yeah.
I just never see that.
I got in some fights on Twitter about this last night about the Pritchett play, so I do want to. I've done my research here, and first off, the player was in the process of getting up from the ground. It's not like he dove onto a guy that's taking himself out on the ground. The guy's in the process of getting up. So what do you want him to do? Go make a play? We have seen guys get up off the ground and go make a tackle. So I personally don't see the necessary roughness because the guy's in the process of getting up. Secondly, the two indicators from the targeting rule that might apply in this situation First off would be lowering the head before attacking by initiating forcible contact with the crown of the helmet. He did not do that. The contact that there was helmet to helmet contact. You can't argue that, but it came face mask to back of the head. So that doesn't apply. The second one would be leading with the helmet, shoulder, forearm, fist, hand, or elbow to attack with forcible contact at the head or neck area. I thought he led with his hands into the upper back of the player as he was trying to get up. And I don't see that as a targeting foul either. So I don't agree with the targeting call. I kind of wish, I think they're looking for something a little bit. And I personally don't agree with the call. I think it was a guy playing physical.
Did not need to be done. You did not need to get a buzz from New York and say, "Oh, you got to check on targeting." It's absolute bullshit.
There should have been. There needs to be flagrant ones or flagrant twos to get ejected. If you're going to review it and look at intent and all that, this is for all of football. You can't. The NFL doesn't eject people. And to be ejected for a half for that. If Pritchett's still out there, Nebraska wins the game. I think we're all in agreement with that.
Clearly.
Yeah,
he's an 18-point swing.
That changed the entire game right there. But look, just to pull a guy out of a game and then to say, well, he can't play this half or he can't play the first half of the next game because of something he did in the previous game continues to make zero sense whatsoever. Okay, there's helmet to helmet on every single play, but there needs to be a 1 and a 2 designation. If you're going in as a missile, okay. But a play like that it does change the game a little bit. Nebraska's still going to lose. But I'm watching that thinking, of all penalties to be ejected for, that makes zero sense. So college football has to change.
Yeah.
We've been around long enough talking about getting targeting out of the game. Okay, got it. Memo. Now let's have a 1 and a 2.
And if you would have had a 15-yard penalty, I would have said I don't agree with it, but okay, I get it. The targeting and the ejection is my sticking point.
Hey, can we, Schmidt wanted to have some positivity. Can we have some positivity here for the fans?
Yeah. At least basketball plays today?
Yeah, they're playing against a guy who makes more in NIL than in Nebraska's entire roster. I wonder if you ask him for a loan, like on the side, you say, hey, next year you need an agent. So losing last night, and depending, maybe it doesn't even matter what happens in South Bend tonight. Maybe we get our wish that Nebraska USC will be a night game that Big Fox does not want anything to do with 11 a.m. Nebraska USC.
Well, if SC keeps their end of the bargain after this glorious start to the weekend, it'll be SC Nebraska on BTN.
Hey, I was rooting. I started a campaign. Nebraska and USC go 3-0 before November 1. Yeah, that campaign went about as good as Dukakis's presidential campaign.
Sure. Yeah. But at least there was Kitty bartending for everybody.
Jesus.
One more thing of positivity. In case you got stuck watching Nebraska and Minnesota, Shohei Ohtani had arguably the greatest game in the history of any baseball player ever last night.
That second home run still hasn't landed.
For the Dodgers.
Yeah. My goodness.
Hey, can you imagine if Ohtani did steroids? He's the GOAT, man. He's like Kelly Leak if Kelly Leak would have been a pitcher.
Well,
I get that.
I get it. Think if Kelly Leak would have smoked Paul Malls instead of Marlboro Reds.
Yeah,
Kelly had to use a filter, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're watching the greatest living baseball player, in my opinion. He is the GOAT, and man, 3 home runs in a game, 10 strikeouts.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if you guys care about some of the advanced baseball analytics, not a single barrel last night. Not a single barrel. It was 10 strikeouts. He gave up 2 hits, but neither of those were solid contact. And then he hits 3 home runs with one that flew 470, still flying. That was, my goodness.
Any upsets in the Big Ten today, boys? Does Washington go into the big house and win and put Sharon Moore in a very uncomfortable spot at 4-3?
No, I don't think so.
Does USC upset Notre Dame?
I wonder if SC can be physical 2 weeks in a row. The Big Ten teams either respond or get targeted, right? And you saw USC respond after the pig farmer got violent with them in the phone booth on the lines of scrimmage. SC learned from that and at least out Michigan last week, which I wouldn't have put money on happening. I know SC has the athletes and talent to do about anything they want on the football. But being a more physical team than the Michigan team we saw, I didn't have money on.
Does Anthony Smith with a freshman quarterback at Knighton Kinnick as a slight underdog win?
That's what I was going to go for. That if there's a bold prediction to make, Penn State wins this week. They beat Iowa.
And then the last one, does Wisconsin cover as 4 touchdown underdogs at home against Ohio State?
I think you take the points. As bad as Wisconsin's playing, I think you take the points just because of the fickle Ohio State factor. He knows the Buckeyes. I think getting 4 touchdowns, maybe it's just a 24-point win by Ohio State.
To keep Fickle around, to be nice to Luke Fickle, and so they're not going to bury him and make Wisconsin next week's headline for a coach search.
Well, does Ohio or does Indiana? Do they continue dropping nukes? It's 27.5 with Sparty, and Sparty's a far cry from what went out to USC about a month ago.
Hey, if there's
from a fight standpoint,
if there's any saving grace, Nebraska and Minnesota don't play for a couple of years.
I love coming to this place. I love coming. I'm never coming back again. I mean, it's a sweet road trip. It's an awesome setup of the Graduate. It's fun. People are wonderful. It has been nothing but just ass kicking after ass kicking after unexpected / how did that? They've just been weird games. All the way back to the Hoodie Gate game in 19, to the imaginary fence, electric fence with Yant Doleman,
That still bothers me.
To you're up 10 and you're up a touchdown and you lose it on a field goal in 2023. To last night where they just got annihilated. They got hammered.
You should have gone to Paul McCartney last night, Schmitty.
It was more expensive to go see this Nebraska team than get in to see Paul McCartney.
Yeah. Next week Memorial Stadium will be very interesting, the vibe.
Yeah.
Does Minnesota beat them twice, or does Nebraska go, this is different?
Well,
Because we all want Nebraska to be different, and we're like, okay, there's a couple of things that look different. Last night was halting because it reminded you that they're still kind of Nebraska, and Minnesota is still kind of Minnesota.
They got to come out and play angry next.
I don't think they have the ability to do that, Schmitty.
And how the hell is that possible?
I don't think they have an abundance of hit stickers, broke dicks guys. They're a very nice football team that doesn't play with a ton of anger.
There's no psycho or edge guy.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
All right.
I would love to be proven wrong, but I haven't seen anything where guys just lose their effing mind on the field and they're like, this is not happening. And they go and make a play and blow somebody up. They call, like last night, I know we were all sensing it. Even Bill doing a basketball game in the back of his mind, he's like, this, I feel like this should be a moment that Nebraska should force a turnover, a big hit, strip sack. They pop a running back, ball comes free. They pick off a pass. They blow up a guy across the middle and the ball goes in the air and they catch it. Never happened. They never made Minnesota pay for shoving it down their throat.
And one of the things I'm worried about whenever you talk about a guy that maybe has something of a physical presence or something of a little bit of nasty to him is Rocco.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Schmidt. Do you have any insight on how long that's going to be? He came back from the hospital, but he's got a big old cast on.
I don't have a timeline. I just know that it's not good.
Yeah, it's that. Welcome, Mr. Kraynak, to the starting lineup. Oh boy.
Elijah, you'd agree with me that it's not good.
Yeah, he might return this season, but I don't think there's any way he's playing next week or probably against USC either.
So that's his college career probably, if that's the case.
Yeah, I did not hear from mom or dad last night. I just sent him well wishes.
How do we know how it happened?
I think he got it jacked a little bit going to last week. So I think he came in playing with a bad paw.
What is it with what is it with the bad paws? Lenhart had surgery earlier this
And
year.
then you have V9,
Yeah,
Shavers,
and now
got a
Spindler.
club on. Yeah. What is going on? Maybe well that's hand fighting, right? I mean, you're using your hands, and I don't know if it's in game or if it's in practice.
I don't think Corey Campbell's doing enough finger and hand lifts during the offseason.
He got grip for thing.
Who was it? There was an NFL Hall of Fame offensive lineman. It was Mark Schlereth who told the story where he'd come into off-season workouts and his main lift was he'd go over to the bucket of sand and just squeeze sand. It would have been Schlereth would have been Jets. Who offensive lineman Schlereth would have played with on the Jets?
Schlereth played for the Jets.
Nick Mangold.
Mangold. Yeah, the center.
I'm not thinking Schlereth here. Who am I thinking?
Broncos. Are you thinking of the Jets or the Broncos when he?
Oh no, I'm thinking Golick. Sorry, I'm thinking Golick. Who did Golick play with on the Jets?
Ooh, maybe Mangold.
No, it was pre-Mangold.
Gastineau, Klecko,
Marty
Lyons,
Jets.
Randy Rasmussen,
DeBrickashaw Ferguson.
No, well, Mike Golick. We're talking like 80s here.
No, well,
And am I thinking Eagles? I can.
because he didn't play for the Jets, dude.
There's Eagles then,
or Lyle Alzado, Conrad Dobler,
whoever it was. I don't know. He told the story. It was on Mike and Mike in the morning back in the day. I remember listening to it on the way to school.
Jim Otto was a badass.
I talked to Jim Otto once.
Yeah.
Told me about 87 knee surgeries. That was incredible.
Hey, Diego Pavia is on game day right now. They're interviewing him on the field before LSU Vanderbilt. He's warming up. Dude, move on. You look like you're about 35 years old playing college football.
But it's a great payday.
Hey, hey, we live in a world. I just want you to know, boys, we live in a world where there are some things that don't make sense. There are some that do. Minnesota's beaten Nebraska 6 straight times. Nebraska hasn't won on the road in Minneapolis in a decade. They haven't beaten Minnesota since 18. Indiana football is paying their football coach the second highest among anybody in the Big Ten. They're number 3 in the country. Penn State got rid of a head coach who last year won 13 games. And we wake up today and Vanderbilt at home against a ranked LSU team is a favorite. This is such a great sport. It screws with us and it ruins our weekend like this will do with what happened last night. But God, this sport is great.
No, you love it and you can't escape it. And we're back for it tomorrow, Sunday Live, the Average Joe Sports Show. More thoughts on Nebraska. And, of course, reaction to the glorious day and slate of college football. Sharpie, appreciate you making time, brother.
Thanks, guys. We can also talk hoops tomorrow. Overreact to an exhibition game.
Yeah, that'll be good. Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, Elijah Herbel. Elijah, thank you, brother.
Volleyball last night. Volleyball set a record at the Breslin Center. Swept Michigan State. Very awkward. Jalen Ray's ex-fiance is the head coach of Michigan State, but yet they fought through it and they won.
Right.
Yeah, she's really, really good. She moved to Lincoln. They broke up. She went and got the head coaching job at Michigan State, and they faced off against each other last night.
I heard from my Michigan State buddy, and he's like, wow, there's several thousand Nebraska volleyball fans in East Lansing. You guys do travel. So,
well, if you're going to spend your money on a road trip, it's better spend it on volleyball than football right now.
Hey, shout out to everybody in the stream.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, gals today, great effort.
Yeah.
It's really
we tried
really
to get it to as many as we could.
Yeah, enjoyed the stream this morning. So
come back tomorrow at 10:30 Central.
Yes. Weekend edition to Sunday Live. Like and subscribe. YouTube at the Average Joe Sports Show. Also 7 days a week for you on Twitter, AJ Sports Pod, AJ Sports Radio. Sharpie, be good. Billy D, be good. Elijah, appreciate you, brother. I'm going to go throw massive amounts of cold water on Junior to get him aroused from his
parent.
stupor.
Bad parent.
By bad parent? No, I'm not a bad parent. I'm just trying to. He needs some sort of shock to the system to clear the cobwebs, and we're going to get on the road. So appreciate y'all. You guys take care.